Hey guys, welcome to another YouTube video, and this is my review on both the 2022 AFL and NRL Grand Finals. I originally was going to do the AFL Grand Final and the NRL Grand Final reviews as separate videos, especially the AFL Grand Final. Apologies for it being so long. It's been a couple of weeks since the grand final, so it might be a bit out of date, but yeah. And then of course with the NRL grand final, it just been this weekend. I thought, you know what, why not, review both grand finals in the one video. So comment down below what you think. Do you think that I should, keep it in the future? Just do both NRL and AFL videos talk about AFL and NRL in the one video, or shall I keep them separate? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. So we'll talk about the AFL Grand Final first, obviously. Wow. For starters, I have never seen a season that has been dominated, has been this dominant as Geelong had this season. I mean, yes, they did have their lapses earlier in the season, like when they lost to Sydney, when they lost to Hawthorn, when they lost to St Kilda. They had their lapses in those type of games, but really all great sides do have those type of lapses. And then after the St Kilda game, they went on this ridiculous run, like absolute ridiculous run, and it culminated in this grand final win. Just unbelievable. They dominated the game against Sydney in the grand final against the Sydney Swans from the very start to the very end. They absolutely dominated. I mean, the start of the grand final was a bit, was usual grand final, a bit helter-skelter, both teams trying to sort each other out, see who blinks first, but then Hawkins, off the grabbing the ball out of the ruck contest. I still can't believe nobody has done it. He's probably the best in the game at doing this. He just grabs it, snaps it, kicks the first goal to really open up the floodgates, really. And and even though Haywood did kick their first goal after the Swans' first goal after Geelong kicked the first two. After that, they basically, I think they piled on like the next 4 goals. I think they've piled on the next 4 goals, and I think the next something like maybe about 7 or 8 scoring shots. The rest of the first quarter, and then and we all know in AFL circles, if you're 5 goals down, then that really puts you behind the 8 ball, and it really did for Sydney in the first quarter. They never really recovered. I mean, they were sort of competitive in the second quarter. They really pegged Geelong back. I mean, and they scored 3 goals to themselves, 3 goals to 3 goals 3 in the second quarter. So Geelong only won that quarter by a point, but because of that meant that and because of that, at halftime it was only 36 points. And despite Sydney kicking the 3 goals too, that was only reduced by the 1 margin. And then Geelong showed that the third quarter is regarded as the Premiership quarter for a very, very good reason. And it happened last year. It happened last year with Melbourne. It happened It happened in 2017 with Richmond. I can list off so many times where the grand finals have been won in the third quarter. As I said, it is a very good reason why it's regarded as the Premiership quarter, and they absolutely hammered. And I think both games where the preliminary final against Brisbane, it wasn't it was like the preliminary final where they were in front, but they didn't finish them off. Then the third quarter was where this game's really over. By 5 minutes left in the third quarter in the preliminary final, I just said throw in the towel, please. This was the same thing. It just call the mercy rule. I mean, the statistics showed themselves 6 goals free to 1 behind, unbelievable. And then and they kept on piling on the goals in the last quarter. Even though Sydney did kick 4 goals, there were more consolation goals really. And then of course and then siren sounds and I remember Joel Selwood kicking that goal, which ironically was his final game, unfortunately, which was expected, but still sad that he's retired now, because it's such a one of the most courageous captains in the game in the history of the game, and I really hope that he gets added to the Hall of Fame in the future. I mean, his resume stacks up. I mean, over 350 games, 4 flags, Premiership captain. What more I could say really. And of course the siren sound, and of course Geelong won by 81 points, 20 at the scoreline, 2013 133 to 8452. And of course the Norm Smith medal was, of course, as we all know, was won by no relation to Isaac Smith. And I think really he did. I think it was either out of him and Dangerfield that was going to win the Norm. But I mean, I watched it. He was unplayable for Sydney. I mean, these stats show themselves. I mean, listen to this. Listen to this. Geelong. By the way, if you're a Geelong supporter, I'll be sorry if I cause you to drool very badly. By the way, 3 goals, 32 disposals. 11 contested possessions, 12 marks, 11 inside 50s, 771 metres gained, and 14 score involvements. That just screamed. Norm Smith medalist right there. I think Dangerfield. I think he was. Some people say that he was robbed of the Norm Smith, or some people said I kind of have to agree really, but I think Smith's game was better than Dangerfield's game, but Dangerfield did deserve the Norm as well. I mean, his stats as well: 27 disposals, 19 contested possessions, a game high. Not in that area, 9 clearances, 7 inside 50s, and 13 score involvements. It really did set the tone, definitely in around the midfield, in the guts for Geelong. For Geelong. And then another story to come out of the game was, of course, despite it being an absolute mauling, ended up being the result and being a one-sided fizzer in the end. The crowd, 100,024 at the MCG. It was the maximum capacity at the MCG, by the way. and the biggest crowd attendance at the grand final in the AFL era. Actually, more accurately, since the 1986 grand final. If it's no doubt about, if it hasn't been announced yet, then it is. Football is officially back. It is officially back. It took a while following low crowd numbers during the home and away season, but finals it really showed that footy is back, and hopefully these sort of numbers, showcase hopefully maybe the opening rounds next season as well. Some other things to come out of the game. Of course, Guthrie. For injuries, Guthrie, he didn't. It wasn't. I might need to research this. I don't know if it was confirmed if he had an injury or not. At the time, it did say that it was yet to be confirmed. That he did have an injury, but he was subbed out of the game late for Parfitt, who subsequently went on to kick, who just to rub salt into their wounds, kicked a goal in the latter stages of the game as well. So yeah, with that, and of course Sam Reid. I mean, another big thing that will come in the fallout from this game, or still in the fallout of this game, is the inclusion of Sam Reid. I mean, we all knew he got injured. He got injured in the preliminary final against Collingwood. There was doubts whether he would play or would he not. The same thing as Max Holmes. Would he play? Would he not? It was initially it was Holmes was selected in the side, but then on the actual day, Chris it was confirmed that he actually passed all the tests of medical tests on his hamstring and got the 2 thumbs up to play. But Chris Scott came out and said, "No, you're not playing. I'm not risking you. We're going into this team. We're going to this 100% fit. We're going to this." I want a side to go into 100% fit. Unfortunately, young fella, you're out of the side. While on the other hand, they just persisted with Reid, who had little to barely no impact on the game. It was a dirty day, really, for the Swans fans. I mean, Buddy had one of his worst games. Probably 2 of his worst games, probably for the Swans, and probably his whole AFL career, were both in this final series. I mean, in the qualifying final, he was absolutely outplayed by Stephen May, and he was totally outplayed again on the biggest stage of them all. And then of course Reid was subbed out of the game. Midway through the third quarter. So that's going to be and of course, if it came off that injury, and Sydney would have won that game, we would have been praising Sydney for its gutsy decision to play Reid and it being a success, and then criticising Geelong for not playing Max Holmes. But now the Swans had losing the way they did. They should know that they're going to be fully going to be criticised about it, and and the pressure's going to be on Sydney really because there is a history of this where teams in the past have been beaten rather badly in grand finals, and then the next year they don't really they fall off the wagon quite badly. I mean the two examples. I mean, Brisbane, they got smashed by a tune of 40 points in the grand final of 2004. They finished out of the finals completely in 13th. I think it was 13th or 12th. I think it was in 2005. Collingwood, they made the grand final in 2003, got smashed in the grand final by the Lions. and then the next year they finished 13th. Adelaide, which is the most obvious one. They went into the 2017 grand final as the unbackable favourites against Richmond, and what they do, they get smashed to the tune of 8 goals, and of course they missed the finals they missed the finals next year. 2 years later, they end up winning the Spoon. So I hope that I'm not saying that Sydney aren't gonna make finals. As everybody says about them, I'm confident that they can back this up and show that they're not going to drop off like other teams and get back to this stage. But for a young side that has plenty of youngsters in there, that has Warner, who was probably Warner, Rowbottom, for example, just to say the two examples, that will haunt them. That loss would haunt them. It would, unless they win a flag that in the near future, then that would haunt them for the rest of their footy careers probably. But yeah. So to my 3-2-1 votes for this. So of course the 3 votes for me has to go to Isaac Smith, obviously a Norm Smith medalist. I already said his stats, I'm not going to say it again. Play back this video if you want to hear his statistics. 2 votes to Patrick Dangerfield. I think that 3 and 2 votes probably get it easy. The 1 vote, I actually gave this to Tom Hawkins, because the reason, even though not much stats, I mean 14 touches, 6 marks, 7 scoring involvements, 3 goals, 4. He really got them started. I think, when he kicked the first 2 goals of the game. He really got the ball rolling, made a presence in the forward line, and got Geelong, got the ball rolling for Geelong, and that's how they ended up getting smashed the way they did. And if he's kicked straight, then he probably would be high up in there in terms of the Norm Smith, in terms of getting 3 goals, 4. It wasn't just from the grand final as well. He missed a couple of easy shots as well in the prelim as well. So a bit of minor problems there with the set shot routine for the Tomahawk, but in terms of that, but other than that, he's as I said, he's the best in the league at taking the ball out of the forward line stoppage and snaps and kicks a goal, and yeah, so yeah. So that is pretty much it in terms of the AFL Grand Final. Of course, Geelong capping off one of the most dominant seasons that the game has ever seen. Up there with Carlton in 1995, as well. So yeah, with that as well. Moving on to the NRL Grand Final. Which happened just last weekend. And not surprisingly, much like Geelong, the Penrith Panthers have been dominating this season. I mean, the statistics show themselves. They've only lost 4 times during that year. Twice had been from Parramatta, and probably some of them probably thought, it might happen. It might be a 3rd time, maybe, but it never was a chance. So the first 10 minutes of the NRL Grand Final was the same thing as it was the first 10 minutes of the AFL Grand Final, where it was basically more, each both teams try to suss each other out and see if people can blink first. And it's the same thing, when Stephen Crichton scored that try in the 10th minute, I watched all of this game as well, both the NRL and AFL Grand Finals. once Stephen Crichton scored that try, the floodgates just opened. I mean, Brian To'o scored in the 17th minute. Then it was Scott Sorensen. Then it was Scott Sorensen in the 27th minute. In the 27th minute as well. Just like that, within the half an hour mark, it was 18-0, and we all thought, how can Parramatta get back from here? Well, they never did in the end. And then they scored another 2 tries at the start of the second half. To'o scored again, and then Charlie Staines in the 58th minute off the back of probably one of the best tackles I've ever seen from Dylan Edwards, who, not surprisingly, was the Clive Churchill medal winner. I'll talk about him in a bit. And then of course Parramatta scored 2 consolation tries at the end of the game. One from Clinton Gufferson and one from Jake Arthur as well. Not surprisingly, Mitchell Moses was 2 for 2 in terms of the conversions, and Nathan Cleary, of course, doing his bit with the penalty goal in the 21st minute, and then scoring 3 out of the 5. 3 out of the 5 conversions. The 2 that he missed were basically all of them were from the sideline. Both of them that he missed. Other than that, all 3 of them that he scored were basically close to goal anyway. So yeah. So the Clive Churchill medal winner, that went to, as I said, it went to Dylan Edwards. Of course, this was his statistics of the game. 1 try assist, 3 line break assists, 291 meters, and of course that tremendous tackle. That tremendous tackle. There is moments in an NRL grand final or when people win the Clive Churchill medal that some people say, oh, that moment there won them the Clive Churchill medal. This it's happened plenty of times before. When I can remember, probably I think 2015. I think Jonathan Thurston, I believe, would have won the Clive Churchill medal winner. Probably the reason why he won it was because he won he kicked the winning field goal to win the Cowboys the Premiership. That's the main example. What's another example? Another example, Ryan Papenhuyzen in 2020 when he does these now infamous, I should say now, tap backs that my boy Pappy does. You could tell Ryan Papenhuyzen is my favourite player. You can tell. When he taps it back and all that, and a lot of other players do that nowadays too. Just to keep it in the field of play. That play pretty much won it. And of course, when he scored a running try, when he was basically when they were about 30 meters from their own line, defending their own line, grabbed the ball, ran, and there you go. Scored a try. Those 2 moments winning the Clive Churchill medal. This moment here from Dylan Edwards, not only winning the Clive Churchill medal, but it would probably be up there with, be added to some of the greatest NRL grand final moments. Up there with the Benji Marshall flick pass. I'm trying to think of other moments that are etched in my mind. Of course, the first and field goal. That's probably all I've got in my mind at the moment. that tackle from Dylan Edwards probably, and he much deservingly won the Clive Churchill Medal in the end. I was right with my prediction that if the Panthers would win it, a Panthers player would win the Clive Churchill Medal, but it wasn't. It wasn't Nathan Cleary. It was Dylan Edwards in the end. And back on the team here. I'm not surprised. If you look at the statistics, it's not surprising that Parramatta got smashed in such a big way. I mean, even if you look past the fact they had more tackles than Penrith. I mean, possession. In terms of possession. Penrith had 56% possession compared to Parramatta 44%. Running meters is the obvious one. I mean, Parramatta had over just under 60 had about 1,600 meters running meters compared to Penrith. They had 2,200 at 2,200. Which you can tell that it was basically a mauling in that stat. Also, the post contact meters. I mean, you can tell that Penrith had. You can tell from after when Stephen Crichton scored that try, that all they needed was a try to really break the shackles, and they really did. And after that, they really set about right. Let's win this game and make sure we win it. We absolutely forced the opposition into submission, which they did. At one point, it was 28-0. At one stage, I thought, maybe the Storm's unwanted record may be in danger. I really wanted it. Yeah, but it really wasn't to be in the end, really. Some other match facts as well. The obvious one. This is Penrith's fourth premiership. In its 56-year history, adding to the ones, of course, last year, and then, of course, the two previous in 1991 and 2003. And another fact here is this: that the Penrith Panthers now have won 67 out of the 78 matches in the last 3 years since 2020, and that is. Which is the most dominant since Parramatta themselves when they claimed their 3 consecutive premierships back in the early 80s, which is staggering, really, and it leads you to the point where how long could the Panthers keep this up for? I mean, some of these players are still quite young, but there is that possibility that maybe, you know, players like Crichton and all these other good players, they can get offers from other clubs and basically accept those or in any way or accept to any other new club, in particular the Dolphins. That's pretty. It's. I wonder how much they would. As I said, it's still quite young. A lot of these players have still got a lot of footy left in them. And undoubtedly that they will be a powerhouse in the NRL for years to come, really. So that was pretty much it for the NRL, reviewing the NRL Grand Final, and that's pretty much the end of this video. So just to round it off, I think just the final word in this video, it has to be the 2 most dominant seasons in Australian football. I mean, I mean, it's rare that you find teams that one season, you know, an AFL team is dominant, and then the next year an NRL team is dominant. But it's rare to see an AFL team and an NRL team in the same year just absolutely dominate dominate their separate leagues. And with Geelong and Penrith, that really happened. I mean, it's unbelievable, really. An unbelievable season from both of them, and of course the other 17 clubs in the AFL and the other 16 clubs now in the NRL next year have to find need to do something to stop that dominance. So yeah. So like this video, share this to anybody who's an AFL fan or an NRL fan. Comment down below. What were your thoughts if you watched the AFL Grand Final or the NRL Grand Final? What were your thoughts on those separate games, or were you like me, watched both NRL and AFL Grand Finals? What did you think about both of them? Especially, what did you think of the Grand Final entertainment? I mean, I would much take Robbie Williams at Delta Goodrem any day of the week over screaming bloody Jimmy Barnes, that's for sure. But yeah, and the last thing, somewhere down there, click on the big red button which is labeled subscribe. Until next time, guys, I'll see you guys later, and wherever you may be, may the sun or the moon shine on you. Well, it's definitely shining on Penrith and Geelong fans right now, at least for another 6 months.